This is Michelle Hughes from Ageless and Timeless. Today's podcast is brought to you by Water and Wellness. Recently, I had the opportunity to visit Water and Wellness at their offices, and I can tell you that as far as you and I are concerned and our health is concerned, this is one of the most important places that you can go to find water that is purified and products that will help your longevity and your overall health. Visit waterandwellness.com to learn how you can take control of your drinking water and learn about those natural additives to optimize your health and longevity. Contact Stacy at 877-296-6880. Use the Ageless code and you'll get a 20% discount on all your products.
My love for you is immeasurable. My respect for you immense. You're ageless, timeless, lace and fineness, your beauty and elegance.
Well, welcome everybody. This is Michelle Hughes, and today I am the lucky person to be sitting at a beautiful resort called Pronghorn, Pronghorn, if you've never heard of it. And I am in Bend, Oregon, where I have never been before, and it's absolutely stunningly beautiful here. I highly recommend if anybody is looking for a place to go to get away from it all, given what's been going on for the last 3 months. This is a destination that you need to know about. With me today is the general manager of Pronghorn, whose name is Spencer Schaub. Did I say that right, Spencer?
You did, Michelle. Thank you.
Okay, good enough. Well, Spencer's been with Pronghorn. Actually, he's probably one of the oldest employees, although he's very, very young in chronological age, but he's been here for 10 years, right, Spencer?
That's correct. It's actually going to be my 11th summer, so just over 10 full years, Michelle.
Wow. So why don't you tell us what it was like here in the beginning, 10 years ago, and then explain a little bit about the meaning of pronghorn, because I don't think many people have ever even heard that word. I know it is an animal, right? It's a deer.
Yeah, it's actually, think of it as the family of like an antelope. And we actually do have herds of pronghorn that roam the land around us. And for those individuals who haven't been to Bend or been to Central Oregon before, Central Oregon is the high desert. So we get over 300 days of sunshine a year. Most people, Michelle, think of Oregon as this wet, rainy state. And what most people don't realize is on the eastern side of the Cascade Mountains, which Pronghorn and Bend, Oregon is located, we have high desert, and so we get hot, dry summers, and as we're experiencing a beautiful one today. So Pronghorn sits about just 12 miles outside of Bend, Oregon, and we are surrounded by a juniper forest, second largest juniper forest in the world. So when you arrive into the property or into the community, you have this 4-mile driving road that winds you in. So you almost feel, Michelle, and I hope you felt this, you almost feel like you're almost in your own little private enclave.
What does a juniper, what is the advantage of a juniper? Is it a health potion when it's taken from the berry to an oil or a tincture?
Yeah, so let's answer that in a couple of ways. If you ask all the birds that eat the juniper berries, they get drunk off it pretty quickly. But that's not the healing property you and I are referring to. But yeah, if you study a juniper tree and the history to it, it'll date back to, certainly our ancestors who used the juniper tree, the berries, and even the greens on it in various health ways. And I'm certainly not an expert on it, Michelle, but the limited amount of research that we have done on it says there are some healing properties to it. As you know, also they make gin out of berries, and they can make them out of juniper berries. I'm not a distiller, so I don't know the details of that. Mm-hmm. We have had numerous health experts come to the property, and in the best way I like to explain it, it just feels when you get into the resort and you get into the property, you just get this sense of healing when you get here. And I know that's something we like to call our juniper preserve around the property, because you know, when you start talking about 20,000 acres of a juniper forest, you certainly, it's a big one.
So give us a little bit of the history then of Pronghorn. How did it come to be? What was it prior to becoming this vision of a developer to create a beautiful enclave? So and why was it located here versus closer to town? Let's say.
Well, that's a very good question, and I'll give you the summary version of that. So, it actually, the development rights for Pronghorn actually dates back to the Abraham Lincoln days, where certain, if you look at a county map, there's squares in each of those county maps, and each one of those squares had certain rights. It just so happened that the square that Pronghorn sits in, which is one of the perfect 1 square mile by 1 square mile, when you look at a county map, that's what Pronghorn is. It's a perfect square in a county map. So the point of it is that this area was allowed to be developed. So when it was developed in the early 2000s, existing out here was not much at all. I mean, there was some grazing rights in the land around us. There was a couple homesteads that were out here. But in the early 2000s, most of the infrastructure got put in for the residential community. So let me back up for a second, Michelle. Pronghorn is a mixed-use residential resort community. So we have real estate that borders around the outsides of the property, and then in the inside of it, we have this resort community. So over the years, dating back to the early 2000s, when the infrastructure got put in for the residential side, homes were starting to be developed, land was being sold, homes were being constructed, and then in sort of mid-2000s, we started to develop a residence club component, 3 and 4 bedroom units that are part of that. And then as early as last year is when we built our Huntington Lodge, and that is a 104-room hotel that sits here on property. So what I like to tell people is think about this perfect square, and inside that perfect square, you have a residential community as well as a resort community, 2 golf courses, most of your resort amenities that you would come to love and enjoy. And we're primarily a destination resort.
So how do people hear about you?
Well, it's a couple different ways. First of all, for those of you who don't follow us on social media, I certainly would recommend that you do, because the views out here are stunning. And I'm sure if Michelle and I could turn around and show you 8 different mountain peaks that are snow-capped for 12 months out of the year. It's certainly a nice view in the evenings as the sun's setting over there. So pronghornresort.com is the website. Follow us on social media, both on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We are active on those channels. We actually have, Michelle knows this, but we actually have one individual who does that for us full time. So please get in contact with us through those channels.
So suddenly my computer just went, hold on 1 second, because I'm gonna have to move and plug in so we don't lose each other. Okay, there we go. Hopefully that worked. Let's just see. So social media, of course, in today's world, that's how people hear about it. The Bend, Oregon, I think that just knowing to come to Central Oregon, knowing to come to this area is the first step, right? Why Bend? So you just told us why the sunshine is a big calling, particularly in Washington and Oregon, where, like you said, everybody thinks it's raining all the time. But here, it's the confluence of the desert and the mountains, right?
Yeah, well said. And Bend is a very interesting community too, Michelle. I mean, when you look at all of the outdoor recreation that happens in this community, and we could go through everything from those who like to fly fish to those who like to paddleboard, those who like to hike, those who like to rock climb. Obviously, the mountain biking and cycling is abundant here. And all of those outdoor activities, what we have seen over the last 10 years since I've been here, is that Bend has that draw for that, whether you, regardless of what age group you are, if you're young in chronological age, or you're on the more mature side of that, there are activities that we're finding that everybody comes here to do, especially for people who are currently in the urban settings, and they're saying, hey, you know what, I live my daily life in a city, and the mountains and the outdoors is something that appeals to me. And I could go on with a list of activities, even down to whitewater rafting and kayaking up in the mountain lakes. And with the daily flight market that comes into Redmond Bend, that's our airport here, airport code RDM, you know, pre-COVID, and hopefully here shortly, they'll return up almost to 20 flights a day to all the major metropolitan hubs around the West Coast.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, we're ageless and timeless, right? That's our mantra. And I know you have an amazing spa here, and that the health part of the quotient of why do people come here. So why don't you address that part for a moment? Just tell us, what are the health benefits of being here at Pronghorn, and why will people who come here feel better when they leave?
Well, first of all, I think when you do get here, Michelle, like hopefully you felt when you've been here, is that you do first and foremost get a chance to unplug from the world, just strictly based on our location. Now you can certainly plug back into that world, as we all do, but first and foremost, I think that's one of the highlights of here. Once you drive 4 miles into Pronghorn, I like to use the phrase, the trip begins where the road ends. And as you know, our road ends at our welcome cottage. And then once you enter those gates into the community, into the resort, that's kind of where your vacation or your trip begins. And then from a relaxation and health and wellness perspective, a couple different things. One, as you mentioned, yes, we do have a multitude of treatments and opportunities here at the spa. You know, we've even done some more interesting things, you know, whether it's our island that we have between between a couple golf holes out here where we do yoga in the mornings, opportunities to walk the Huntington Trail, which is actually a wagon road that runs through the west side of our property, which was a wagon road. Think of the Oregon Trail to actually connect the north to the south. So you can gain a little bit of history while you're here as well. And I certainly encourage people that when you do get to property, don't only take some time to enjoy your stay at Pronghorn, but also enjoy the time out that the other areas outside of Bend that it has to offer. And I think most people, when they leave here, Michelle, feel refreshed and feel vibrant.
There's something about the mountains. I lived in Aspen for a while and developed real estate there. And honestly, the summertime, as much as I love the skiing, the summertime in Aspen was absolutely the most glorious. And somehow climbing a mountain and looking out is that in itself is an invigorating and healthful experience. Spiritually, I don't know what it is about Pronghorn that I felt, but I'm sure you can explain it. There is some kind of a spiritual, mystical feeling here. What is that?
Yeah, we tend to tie that back to a couple different things. One, we certainly tie that back to what I mentioned earlier about how special the juniper forest is around us, and we believe that there is some of those healing properties here. And second of all, when you do get here, Michelle, there is, you know, pace is we live such a fast and rigid pace in our life, whether we're living in the cities or we're working. You know, I think all of us would tend to agree, whether when you're on vacation, it's very easy for you to continue to work. And what we do ask people when they get here is to go ahead and enjoy the sunrises over the butte to the east and enjoy the sunsets over the mountains to the west.
Can you try to take your computer and show us some of these sites while we have talking about them? So if that's easy to do, it would be great. I know that the studio has your website and they were going to show that link. I hope they'll do that. That's wonderful. Wow. Okay, so what are we looking at? I see a petrified tree.
Yeah, so that's what we call a ghost tree, Michelle. And that's actually basically think of it as a petrified juniper. And if I was to pan out more around me, you would actually find we actually built a juniper, what we call a juniper grove. And as you alluded to, in the evenings when it's all lit up and just sort of the peace and harmony that these, you know, hundreds to 1,000-year-old trees that we have throughout the community and throughout the resort, they've certainly become a highlight for us, and sort of an interesting specimen.
Okay, yeah, we can't see it from this vantage point, right by the pool, right? You don't get that from over here, but it's one of the most unique sculptural attributes, I think, of pronghorn. It kind of like a signature to right there at night when you're sitting out and having a cocktail or whatever by the pool. There's this what I call the petrified forest. Now I understand these are juniper trees, and they are hundreds of thousands of years old.
Yeah, depending on which one, they could be, you know, hundreds of years old to thousands of years old. And one of the other interesting things about pronghorn is when you're on the property, because Central Oregon actually was an old lava flow from the Cascade Mountain Range. There's many caverns, or not only around our property, but also around the region. And so spelunking, which is caving, is another one of those sort of fun, fun adventures that Central Oregon has to offer. So not even too far from our property here, you can get into some of the more well-known caves. You know, they'd be lava tubes. So if you can imagine, hot lava was flowing through that tube, and then as the lava settled, it sort of created these caverns, and thick rock and a lot of obsidian style artifacts in there.
So can you show the mountains from where you are now, or because that's one of another signatures? You have Mount Bachelor, and then what is it? Three Sisters, and Broken
Top.
Broken Top. So those are those the three more obvious mountain peaks that you see from here?
Yeah, so imagine if I was spanning from the Cascade Mountain Range runs, north to south or south to north. So if I'm looking due west, which I am right now, and I'll try to show you that here in a second if everybody can see it. So if I started at the south, that would be Mount Bachelor. So Mount Bachelor is actually our ski mountain. So from Pronghorn up to Mount Bachelor is about 45-minute drive.
Right.
And then as I would span from south to north, I'll go through Broken Top. Then what we call the Three Sisters, and those Three Sisters are south, middle, and north, or the sort of local names of Faith, Hope, and Charity. And then as I continue to span north, we'll get into Three Finger Jack, we'll get into Mount Jefferson, and then on a very, very clear day, you can see Mount Hood, which just sits right outside of Portland. So, and as I mentioned, when they start talking about 400 to 500 inches of snow in the mountains a year, and what's interesting about that, Michelle, is in Bend, we'll get an inch or two here or there. Some snowmageddons we have had happen here where we get a little bit more, but for the most part, our winters here are very mild. You might get some chilly mornings or some chilly evenings, but you usually get sunshine. So for those skiers or those who might want to come up and snowshoe or ski or dog sled ride up at Mount Bachelor, once you finish up at the mountain and you come back down into town, it's not like you experienced when you lived in Aspen where you're in feet of snow.
Right. And so people can actually it's like a microclimate. So you're going up to the mountain, you get your wonderful snow and you're skiing. Is the snow soft and forgiving like it is in Aspen, or is it more like what we call Sierra cement? In California? How would you describe the conditions here in the winter?
Yeah, we're fortunate, Michelle, because on this eastern side of the mountain range, our moisture content in the snow is very low. So we do not get the Sierra cement like you're referring to.
Mm-hmm. So it is more forgiving. Mm-hmm. So for skiers who like that, because I much prefer the Colorado and Utah, the snow there is like the best in the world. And I've never skied in Oregon. So this is very interesting to know that you could fly from San Francisco into Redmond in an hour. And in 45 minutes, just like you do when you go to Salt Lake, you can be at the mountain, and you can actually stay in town or stay at Pronghorn and be in the mountain. Do you shuttle bus people up there during the winter?
We do. We have a daily shuttle that will run from the resort up to Mount Bachelor. Mount Bachelor opens at 9 a.m. So we leave the resort here at 8. You're up there by 8:45 and able to catch the first chair. And usually Mount Bachelor closes 3:30 or 4, depending on the lift. So we then have our shuttles come back from Mount Bachelor at roughly about that same time, 3:30, 4 o'clock, and you're back down to the resort sort of no later than 4:45, 5 o'clock, in time for some après ski and a shower and change. And then you're into dinner.
And you have here for après ski, I'm just thinking winter time now, you have a soaking pool, or can people go actually like we did in Aspen every, when you get off the mountain, one of the best things is getting into the hot water, right? So is that something that you offer in the wintertime?
It is. So a couple things, Michelle. We do have we have steam rooms and some of our facilities here, men and women. And then in addition to that, the pool and the hot tub out front of the hotel, although it's outdoors, it's all heated during the winter. And what we also did is we heated the pool deck around the hot tub in the pool. So the snow melts. So if you do nimble out there into the winter, your toesies won't get too cold. And so, think about, sort of those 20 and nights, you can certainly get down in the 20s here, more 30s and 40s, steam's rolling off those pools and those hot tubs, and you're able to sit in and relax the muscles.
So what would you say then is the demographic of your, two categories, your visitor and your owner? Are they the same, or what would be your differentiation of people who actually end up investing here versus people who just come for vacation?
Yeah, they have some similarities, but they also have some differences, Michelle. Let's start on the residential side. So the demographics that we're seeing who are purchasing into Pronghorn, one, are choosing it from a climate perspective, and also because there's an activity either here at Pronghorn or in the local region that they are attached to, or I should say is a hobby of theirs. So it's not uncommon if you were to ask somebody, hey, why did you purchase and build a home in Pronghorn? They might say to you, I love spending 6-7 months here and I enjoy fly fishing, or I like spending 5 months here and I am an avid cyclist, or hiking is something that's important to us. The other thing I'll mention on the residential side is that Pronghorn is primarily a second home community. So most people this is their second or third home, and most of them have another home or two in a different region. So it wouldn't be uncommon for us to have which we do have a connection between the desert communities in the winter and then up in Central Oregon in the summer. So that's how I would explain the residential side. From the resort side, what you would see is you would certainly see our demographic coming from everything. You can draw a straight line from Seattle right down to the Bay Area. And anything kind of along that corridor is where most of our guests are coming from. It's not uncommon, Michelle, to see a SUV pull in here with 2 mountain bikes on the back and 2 paddle boards on the top, right? And it's not uncommon for a Suburban to pull in with a family who wants to get out and see nature. So a little bit of same in some ways, as I said earlier, but also a little bit different. And from an age perspective, it's a complete range. We'll have everything from 20s right up into into the 70s.
I should take a moment and just tell everyone how amazing my accommodations here are. And I want to thank you, Spencer, for making that possible. But so when I contacted Spencer, just to give you a little background, my experience in Hawaii introduced me to my next door neighbor, which was Princeville. And if anybody knows Kauai, Princeville is one of the major resorts. And the owner of Princeville is Jeff Stone, and Jeff Stone and I became friendly. And he used to come over to my property and show his investors that, hey, we'd like to do this, this, and this. So he was actually a lot of fun to interact with, because he loved what we did as developers, and he would share that with the people that were funding his project. So we became friendly, and every time I'd go to Oahu, I'd go see him, and we'd chat about our mutual projects. And so anyway, I remembered that he had bought Pronghorn. How many years ago was that, Spencer?
Yeah, so it was in 2011, early 12.
And so he's made quite a lot of changes here, but let me just first tell you what, and then you can talk about that, Spencer. But so anyway, I contacted Jeff, or one of his senior executives, and then they put me in touch with Spencer. So I said I needed a kitchen, and I had no idea. I thought I was, in a hotel room, I was going to get a little kitchenette. And I walk in, and they have a complete KitchenAid kitchen in the accommodations. It's really like you have a full apartment, right, Spencer? And that was the vision.
That was the vision. So on our third floor, so the Huntington Lodge is 3 floors, and on the third floor we actually have what we call there's 10 3-bay suites, and those suites that you're staying in, Michelle, can connect from a king room into a living room, which has the full kitchen as you're referring to, and then into a queen. So for those individuals traveling who want that extra amenity or have family and need that little bit of extra common space, if you think about it, as kind of 3 bays. The middle bay would be your kitchen and living room, and then you have bedrooms on both sides of that. So spreads the family out, put the kids on one side, a husband and wife on the other, or even a couple couples can use it. So those have been very popular. And, Michelle, it may even be a way to think about it. It might have been like a little bit of our way of having extra space to sort of compete with that vacation rental market.
Exactly. I mean, it pales next to, Airbnb pales next to this, because in Airbnb you're getting, things that are nice in many instances, but they're never as well maintained like this is. This is amazing. And then you get, the room service, even with the COVID. Pronghorn is trying very hard to accommodate the different needs of their guests, and some want the room service, some do not, because of the issues of the crisis. And however, if you want it, you can have it. And every day when someone comes in there, they, immaculately clean your place. So it is actually better if you're here during this time, because you know that every day your place is going to be cleaned, beautifully cleaned, assuming that's what you choose to have. But anyway, the kitchen is really to die for. Mm-hmm. I mean, dishwasher, full-on refrigerators, cooktop, stove, full stove, oven, microwave. I mean, it's as good as being in any kind of a condo or apartment setting. And then you get a beautiful king bed, and then those incredible views. And along with it, all the other amenities that Spencer has been talking about. So I'm a golfer, and I, have been out there twice now. So why don't you talk about the golf for a moment, Spencer? Because some people that are listening are very avid golfers, of course.
Yeah, and for those avid golfers that are listening, both of Pronghorn's golf courses, one's Jack Nicklaus signature, and another one's Tom Fazio, and both of them have received high accolades, Michelle, since really their conception. I get the question asked to me numerous times, which one's the better one? And I can't sit here, being a golfer myself, I can't sit here today and say one's better than the other. We're completely blessed with 2 amazing golf courses that certainly have stood up over the rankings and the accolades that they have received over the years. So for all those golfers that are listening out or listening or watching, I would highly encourage that when you're in this area. So the other thing I'll mention too is that, most people when most people think of golf in Oregon, they tend to think of abandoned dunes over on the Oregon.
Right.
But most people don't realize that Central Oregon has 4 top 100 golf courses, and 2 of them are actually here at Pronghorn.
I didn't realize that. I've heard of abandoned dunes. In fact, my friend that came to join me the other day is an avid golfer, and he's played at abandoned dunes, and that's his only other Oregon experience. But he felt that the Fazio course was the first 9 was hard because of the traps and the distance on the greens. So it's definitely challenging. Both courses are, the Nicholas and the Fazio, but they're not so overwhelming that a woman like me, who gets out maybe every once or twice a year, I get to play golf, and I could still play very well, let's put it this way. I didn't embarrass myself. And I think the second day I broke 50. So for me, that was a great experience, and yet it was challenging. So I think you've created something here that's good for all levels, and that's appealing because there's going to be a whole range of ability, right, that comes here.
Yeah, Michelle, one of the things that I think we're all seeing in the market today is we're seeing, and we all believe that potentially there's going to be some people who leave these urban cities and leave some of the urban markets because we're finding their companies are allowed them to work from home. And if you're allowed to do that, where do you want to spend your time is what I think people are asking themselves. And what we're seeing in Bend, Oregon, from a tourism perspective, and certainly from a real estate perspective, is we're seeing people choosing this destination as saying, hey, I put my time in the city, and now I want to live in an area where I have some more open space. I have some fresher, clean air. I have Central Oregon's known to have some of the cleanest water, and all of those activities that go along with what I mentioned earlier, whether it's mountain biking, hiking, whitewater rafting, fly fishing, paddle boarding. When you go through the little cute downtown area of Bend and the old mill district of Bend, there's plenty to do. And I think we're going to continue to see people choose resort destinations and even Bend as their home.
So what plans does Pronghorn have for change? What do you see happening in the next, let's say, 5 years here?
We're certainly going to still see quite a bit of growth from a real estate perspective, Michelle. We currently have about 90 homes built on property right now, and I think we have 16 under construction. And we've been seeing that pace over the last couple of years. So I think as over the next 5 years, it's very feasible the number of homes on property could double for us. In addition to that, the hotel is only a year old. I actually think it's 13 months now, almost to the day. So we're going to see that the resort aspect continue to grow for us as well. And ultimately, there is some more land to be developed around the community, and that's still to be foreseen of exactly what that'll turn out to be. My main job right now is to get customers to come to this beautiful property and see why you and I love it so much.
It's interesting. When I was playing golf, I noticed there were so many lots that are still available. So you mentioned that there's 90, or let's say with the construction, about 110 that are already developed. How many are left to be developed?
Yeah, so in the lots that you were referring to around the golf courses, there's just under 289 lots, actually. I was going to say just under 300. So we have several of them that have been sold, and we're starting to see more and more of our owners, wanting and considering to build on those. But in addition to that, we have about 50 lots for sale that are in our Estates neighborhood and in our Four Peaks neighborhood. let me explain the difference between those two. The estates neighborhood is our bigger lots, bigger homes. So think about buy your home, get your custom home builder. And then our Four Peaks neighborhood, which is about 55 lots left in there. That was designed to be, smaller lots, smaller home. Maybe somebody has a larger home somewhere else and wants another one up in this community where, sort of lock and leave type of concept. And that community called Four Peaks is actually the closest to the resort core. So if that's important to you, there's a community for that. And if you want to be out away from the resort core, then that's what we would call our estate community.
So when I was walking the other day, there was like, I think this must be the Residence Club then, the Four Peaks area, because there were like 8 address numbers. Is that what happens there? The building has several entrances. So how many units are there in each of those structures?
Yeah, so the residences, which think about it, make a horseshoe right around the 18th green of Nicholas. Each of those buildings has 2 4-bedrooms and 2 3-bedrooms in it.
Okay.
And there's 2 keys to each of those. There's a lock off associated with each one of those. So there's 6 buildings. There's 4, and then in each building there's 2 3s and 2 4s. So you have 24 units, but you have 48 keys in there.
So what's the price point of let's talk about the Residence Club for a moment. If somebody wanted to buy there, what kind of pricing are we talking about?
The Residence Club is one where, depending on if you want a 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom sort of pricing, you can get some on the market. If you're a right opportunist, you might be able to get some for, an entry fee of even if $10,000 to $20,000 if somebody wanted to get out of it. And then obviously you have your ongoing maintenance after that, and then the fees will sort of work up from there. But those we've sold in 12ths, so you get 2 weeks in the winter and 2 weeks in the summer to use. And then, like I said, there's a 3-bedroom floor plan and a 4-bedroom floor plan. What's
the advantage of doing that versus the lodge?
There's a couple different advantages. One, obviously, the size of the unit is going to be the biggest one, and then the other part of it is that ownership interest in for you. You're actually going to get deeded a deeded piece of real estate. The other portion that we see to it is that if you are a vacation user and you know that you're going to be vacationing in this area and this is the area that you want to vacation in, and you want to have that home away from home, and you have that that larger kitchen and those multiple bedrooms, then by all means, it's certainly going to be your best option.
Mm-hmm. So, and what's the price point on the lodge, on the hotel amenity with the, let's start with the basic and then move on up to where I'm staying.
Yeah, I'll give you sort of a range of pricing on that too. So when you start sort of your standard king room and work on up to your penthouse, right? So a standard king is going to run somewhere, $250 to $350 depending on the summer. And then our penthouses, which are almost 1,300 square feet units, 2 king rooms, full kitchen, full living room, double-sided fireplace, balconies. Those will go for about $800 to $1,200 in season. So east facing and west facing views. East facing face a butte, and the west facing face the mountains. So there's 2 different ones. Not to say that the east facing's necessarily any worse, as most people sometimes think that, but the east facing you get the sunrise, and west facing you get the sunset.
And Gary, my friend, was saying, hey, I'm glad you're on the east side because the sun in the afternoon here at this time of year is pretty intense. So he said, you're getting the sunrise, and then by the afternoon, you can sit outside on the balcony without feeling that it's overwhelming. So, he was actually very positive. So for people who are questioning that, like I did when I first spoke with you, right, Spencer? Mm-hmm. I said, I don't know if I wanted to be on that side. I'd rather face the west. But then when I got here, I realized, you know what? equally as beautiful, and certainly you can go down to the pool in the evening if you want to face west. So, okay, so
Yeah.
Spencer, so other than selling more lots, other than dealing with COVID-19 issues, which is a more like, wow, how did this happen to all of us, right? That we have to adjust our whole protocol. And you've done that beautifully here, by the way.
Thank you.
I think you've respected the health concerns that everybody has. But what else, like if you had your wish, your dream, what else do you want to see yourself doing here and creating here?
Well, we're certainly going to focus on the health and wellness aspect. As you saw, our spa has an opportunity to grow, and we're going to continue to look at that over the next foreseeable future. We will, one of the big things is that we want to explore the outdoor options as well. Being that we're in this beautiful area, like why would you not find the right opportunities? And that actually goes along with fitness as well, Michelle. One of the things that we're finding right now is that, people want to get back and be active in the fitness world, but there's still a little bit of hesitation to, I'd want to do that indoors. So I think there's an opportunity for us to use our outdoor spaces, and we're going to continue to explore that. So, kind of watch the space on that. From a culinary side, we're proud to support our local farms around us. I know the farm to table language has been used over and over again, but what most people don't realize is on our side of the mountain is probably where you have more of the protein related farms. And then on the other side of the mountains is where you have more of the fruits and vegetables. So our chef, who's a local executive chef, who's a local Northwest born and raised, trained in culinary world up in Seattle. He loves to support that. So I think what we're going to continue to see is kind of those two things where I myself like to eat healthy, and I know a lot of us in this world now are moving more and more to that, and we have to be responsive to that. So let's. As I like to tell people, there's nothing wrong with getting up in the morning when it's still 40 to 50 degrees outside and you still got the beautiful mountain air rolling in and going for your workout, and then sitting down and having nothing but some, fresh fruit and vegetables and farm to table type meals.
Well, and segueing from that, I could see you doing some outdoor yoga, sunrise yoga or sunset yoga, where you create an area because there's so much land here. Looking at the mountains, of course, would be the best. And then also I could see you having your own organic garden here, growing your own particularly herbs, because I know vegetables a little more challenging, and you have so many farmers doing that. But wouldn't it be fun to have people, have an experience where they see that you can actually pick your fruits and vegetables if you wanted to? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I'll tell you a funny story, Michelle. So we actually had a herb garden that was there for many years, and it was actually on the site that the Huntington Lodge is on. So we had to dismantle it, but it'll come back. I'm glad you brought that back to my mind. I got to get that back.
Yeah, because I know in Princeville, Jeff Stone did that, and it was always like a very much, it's like a venue that people love to go to. And see how things are growing, particularly city folk who don't get the chance to do that. And you're out here in the area where everything grows, and even though it's desert, it's irrigated, right? So so that would be two things that I would see. By the way, I've been to the gym every day since I've been here. The gym right now, there's nobody in there but me.
Yeah.
And I know it's because of what you just said, that a lot of people are skittish, and normally a gym and a resort like this would be well attended. And I see the classes are they happening, or is that off too because of COVID?
Yeah, that's currently on hold right now. And one of the things we are seeing, Michelle, is that we do have a 3-mile bike and walking track around the community. So we're certainly seeing more cycling. It just so happens that if you were to run or walk on, so before golf or after golf, run or walk on the Nicholas course, and you stayed on the cart path the whole time, the front 9 is about 5Ks, and total it's about 10Ks. So we're just seeing people get outside more, and I'm glad to see that. And I know when I came into the property this morning, I was counting how many people am I going to see running around the resort, and I was almost up to 6 or 7 people. So they're definitely active outdoors right now, and the weather's so nice. Can
you explain why I've seen so many very, very young children and, families here? What is it that, one is, the first thing one thinks about is this is a very high-end resort, and they're affording to come here with all their kids. So why is it there are so many young families like that, Spencer?
Yeah, 2 reasons. One is our bedroom configurations, as I mentioned earlier, allow for that. And second of all, I mean, think about it, Michelle, when you and I were kids, I mean, it was amazing to go see a waterfall, right? It was awesome to see people rock climbing at Smith Rock, to be paddling in a paddleboard or in a kayak across a crystal blue lake up in the mountains. And, that's one of the other main reasons that I think people are like, hey, we want to get our children out of the cities, and we want to get them into an area and do some of these outdoor activities. Even when the whitewater rafting, which is the closest spot to go, is really right in downtown Bend, and it's a short little float. I mean, kids can do that as well, and it's thrilling for them.
The other day, Spencer, on Sunday, just to let you know, I was on the Deschutes River. I went down and did the hike. I love that. That's by the way, for everybody that's coming here, that is one of the signature hikes. It's flat. It's not challenging in the sense of hills or mountains, but it is so beautiful. And so coming back, there must have been 500 people on Sunday getting on the river, and of course no social distancing there, but everybody was either on a stand-up paddle or a canoe or a kayak, just floating. It's a true community feeling in Bend, for sure. And I didn't realize that the name Bend comes from a bend in the river.
That's correct. So what I was going to say is, even in a typical summer day, floating that river where people will throw their inner tubes in and float down the river, you actually start at the old mill, which most people would consider Bend, and it just makes this big continuous winding, and you actually finish down at Drake Park, which is in Bend. And what's even great about the community, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because it does have a great community feel to it, Michelle, that there's actually a bus service that you can throw the inner tubes or your floaties in, and takes you back to your car, which, by the way, is only at that point in time is less than a mile away.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and people just enjoying each other and enjoying, and every one of those SUPs had a dog on it. Yeah. So there's a lot of animal, adventuring as well, because people take their dogs out and give them a ride on the SUP, on the boat, on the paddle boat. So
yeah, I don't know if you saw any of the dog parks when you were down there or not, Michelle, but they're certainly full of the pets and the pet lovers. And, Bend's been voted one of the #1 dog-friendly towns in America. So
that I didn't know that. Well, now I understand.
Yeah.
Because we were commenting on that there's so many dogs here. Yeah. And do you allow dogs to stay here at the resort?
We do. We have one of our units that is in the residence club that we do allow pets.
That's great. That's good. Not in the hotel though, for sure.
Not in the hotel yet, no.
Yeah. All right. Well, so I know we're going to run out of time, and I know we were talking about on our walk over here what would be attractive and an incentive for our viewers. So why don't you talk for a few minutes about what you would like to offer to Ageless and Timeless viewers to attract them and incentivize them to come in and visit you?
Well, I certainly would hope that people would want to come and have, multiple day stays here. I think that's the best way to see this, not only the property, but also see the region that we've talked about. And by the way, Michelle, one thing we didn't even get into was, for those people who are craft beer drinkers, right? I mean,
oh, that's right. Thank you for
yeah.
bringing that up. Yeah, let's talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, so there's, Bend has the largest number of craft breweries per capita of any city in America. We're in the mid 30s, 33, 34 different craft breweries. So for those of you who are into the craft beer scene, there's actually what we call there's actually a Bend Ale Trail where you sort of go from one craft brewery to the other. There's a couple different little cycle pubs that you can take to cycle around for those. So for those people in that world, and as well as the distillery world, one of the largest kombucha breweries is here in Bend. So there's that artisan feel, Michelle, to Bend. Mm-hmm. We sort of, maybe that was the right word I should have used earlier. So and all, even the little boutiques that are downtown. So my point is multiple day stays in this region are a must. So if any of the viewers would like to stay multiple days, 2 or more days at Pronghorn in our Huntington Lodge, I'll be happy to extend a 25% discount to that multiple day stay.
I think that is so generous. Thank you so much, Spencer. And I know that that the rates will vary according to the time of year. So how are the accommodations looking now that COVID is starting to ease up a little bit for the summer, this upcoming summer? Is it looking more active?
Yeah, Michelle, every week is it's more and more insight into it, and it is looking active. We certainly are not going to have the tourism numbers or the visitor numbers that we would typically expect. Typically, Bend gets about almost just over 2 million visitors a year, so that's certainly going to be down. But from our perspective, yes, we are thankful that we have a very supportive community. They're bringing, their families in to stay with them as well. And sometimes they don't want their children staying in their house that long, so they'll put them in our hotel too. So it's a good mix that we're seeing right now. We're excited about the summer. I think all of us generally as a society are excited to get our lives back and start moving on.
Well, Spencer, I want to thank you so much for sharing all of this very exciting information. This is the first time I've actually featured a resort that, of course, fits the ageless and timeless theme because of a focus on not only the community of Bend and its focus on wellness, because of all the things we've talked about, the outdoor activities, even the craft beer. I mean, it's interesting that I was reading some of the articles about the health benefits that and the way people craft the beer have certain health benefits. The hops, which is so good for your joints, for example. So at any rate, I mean, I don't know if you want to drink too much beer in order to get rid of a joint pain, but it certainly has some health benefits. And then I didn't realize there was a kombucha factory here as well.
Yeah, Kombucha, which, and I don't know, my understanding is it's certainly in the top 3 largest kombucha breweries in the nation, if not the second.
Oh, really? What is the name of it again? Humm. Okay, I always buy it in Whole Foods, so yeah, I didn't know that one.
And the other thing, Michelle, I'll just mention real quickly too. You know how in the wine regions they compare the crush season, when they're crushing grapes and starting to make wine. Well, in the beer world, when they're picking the hops and picking them from the vine, there's a couple days where they pick those fresh hops and they rush them right to the breweries, and the breweries have a limited amount of time to make what they call fresh hop craft beer. And so that's limited release, and that happens in the fall here. So for those of you who aren't wine drinkers and want to, come to the equivalent of the crush season in the beer world, that would be that fresh hop season.
Yeah, we didn't even mention wine.
No, we didn't.
Of course, Oregon has become quite the wine growing state, and Willamette Valley certainly has become quite famous. Maybe not as much as Napa, but it certainly has credibility. And boy, you gave me 2 bottles of wine to try. And one was a Pinot Gris, and the other one was, I can't remember what the other one was. Do you remember?
I think it was a Pinot Noir, both Oregon. I had to make sure they were Oregon.
Yeah, of course. And I was so happy you did that. And both were just so excellent. So, yeah. Well, anyway, I'm getting the high sign that we're out of time. Okay. And I wanted to thank you again for sharing all this information. And why don't you tell people real quickly how to get in touch with you?
Yeah, pronghornresort.com is our website, and follow us on Pronghorn Resort Instagram and also on Pronghorn Resort on our Facebook channels. And once again, for everybody watching, book a 2-night stay or more in our Huntington Lodge, and I'm happy to extend 25% off to your guests.
And can they, if they just use the Ageless code, would they just call in, or is there some concierge person that you would want them to interact with, like Sarah, or how should they execute your wonderful, generous offer?
Yeah, our reservations number is 541-693-5300. Mention the word Ageless and Timeless, and our reservations team will make that booking for you.
All right, perfect. Okay, well, very good. Well, we're going to say goodbye. So let me just do a little farewell to my viewers, and you can stay on with us, Spencer. So. Okay. Well, I think we've been treated today to something that, as I said, I've never done a resort before, but I couldn't have picked a better one to launch that venue of finding places in the world that are going to support our wellness at the same time as during this most recent shocking experience we've all had, to bring us back to some degree of normalcy with activities, and but also still respecting the fact that we are still in a pandemic. So that's one thing I noticed right away, that Spencer is doing a marvelous job here of allowing people to experience life in normal terms, but at the same time, there's hand sanitizers on the counter when you walk in. They're around the resort everywhere. There's, mask if you want it, but not everybody is doing that. So these are the kinds of things that people are looking at, and also that you can drive here. From San Francisco, it took me 8 hours, and I broke it up by staying halfway in Mount Shasta. So you can do that and not have to get on an airplane and still enjoy the relaxation once you get here. So I want to say farewell to everyone. Have a beautiful day. And thank you again, Spencer, for sharing Pronghorn with us. Take care.
My love for you is immeasurable. My respect for you immense. You're ageless, timeless, lace and fineness, your beauty